Are we going? Are we live? I think we are. Looks like we're live on my end. Usually you have to give YouTube a few seconds to catch up. But if this is working, this should be simulcasting on YouTube and Odyssey. Okay, yeah, I'm seeing it on YouTube.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I don't see anyone in the chat, but maybe they don't know yet.
Yeah, we'll see if they come in. And I'm just going to check the Odyssey stream.
Yeah, this Sid P guy said he might join.
Oh yeah, Odyssey's going too. Looks like we're good. So, the only question now is this going to work with my camera? Because when we tried this last month, I didn't bother turning on my camera. Now my camera's on and I'm not seeing any dropped frames, although I look very green for some reason. I think my white balance is off.
Yeah. Speaking of green, you feeling better? You said you weren't feeling too good a couple days last week.
Yeah, it's good. I'm trying to get my camera to white balance. I'm holding up a piece of paper to it. I don't know if that'll do it or not.
What made you sick? Just...
It's just a bug.
Oh.
Heather and I both got it.
Like you weren't.
I hate it though because it gets me like a day behind, and then it's hard to catch up. And you know, like this morning, my daughter had a doctor's appointment I had to take her to. So you know,
yeah. Like, did it make you sick, or was it just one of those things where you're just like, nah, I don't want to do anything?
Well, I had a low-grade fever, which is
just that,
which is unusual for me. Well, no, it was also a bunch of other stuff. I was lethargic and everything.
Oh. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm seeing no dropped frames. Odyssey says it's 30 frames a second, so...
Last thing I heard was low-grade fever.
Hey, Daniel. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good.
We said low-grade fever, and Daniel came right in.
Well, before that, we were talking about how Senator Fetterman looks like Thanos.
Yeah, before we went live. He looks exactly like Thanos, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not too late. I'm not that late then.
Although, as Shane also said earlier, at least Thanos, is better with wording his sentences.
I was talking about just enunciating.
Yeah.
Just speaking plainly.
Yeah, I know. And yeah, my girlfriend was like that too. She was like, I am so pissed off he won. And I said, well, you know what? He would have lost easily if the Republicans didn't frickin' put Dr. Oz for him.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a whole segment of the Idiot Explore segment on the most recent podcast is me railing about that. So go give that a listen.
I brought this up too. It almost kind of reminds me about I think it was, the 2008. No, not the 2008, the 2012 election, and many people were calling Obama out for his bull crap or whatever, and they said, listen, he's a liar, and we know he's wrong, and the Republicans could have taken advantage with that. There were many Republican leaders, not just including Ron Paul, that were saying, listen, we've got too much government, we need to shrink government and all that. And who did the Republicans pick to go against Obama? Romney. Who's just an Obama.
Who's basically a clone of Obama.
Yeah, as many people point out, Romney was just Obama in a Republican suit.
Well, and Obamacare is basically Romney care, what he did in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
I think we're getting an obscene phone call from Daniel. Sid, in the house, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good.
Obscene phone call? What do you mean?
You're just breathing into the mic.
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. I'll move the mic a bit further away. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So this is, I think this is my first one. So how do things usually work around here?
You show up and we talk, and we try not to talk over each other so much.
Well, most of us except for Chris try not to talk over each other.
Yeah.
And
although little warning, if Fourth Root shows up, prepare to have a pillow to sleep on, because when he comes in here, all Shane and him talk about is science stuff that nobody understands.
Can't help it.
And
Yeah.
I
of
just
course,
love that stuff.
there's our obligations to haze the new guy.
And we got Clashes Pride and SPC in the chat. Welcome to you guys. I don't see anyone in the Odyssey chat yet. I'll tell you what.
Sorry.
I'm going to paste the link for the Odyssey chat into the chat here. So if anyone wants to pop over on Odyssey and see how things work there, you can do that.
Oh yeah, we gotta haze the new guy. Okay, here's how it's gonna go. I'm gonna take this paddle and I'm gonna smack you multiple times, and you have to say thank you, sir. May I have another?
Oh, God.
Animal House.
Okay.
Love that movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, well, I'm not sure how you can do that over Discord,
Yeah.
but sure.
I even forgot that was from Animal House, because I saw it on this old video game where there's a character who's sleeping almost all the time, and he's dreaming about pop culture references, and this one character's trying to wake him up, and they spank him, and his only response is he goes, "Thank you, sir. May I have another?"
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, and there's also that scene where he gets sick on the professor, because the professor tells him if they screw up, he's gonna revoke their their draft immunity, and they'll be sent to Vietnam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were on double secret probation.
Yeah.
They took the bar! The whole bar! John Belushi was great. It was such a tragedy what happened to him.
Yeah. You know what's really sad? I saw a documentary about John Belushi, and the really sad part about John Belushi is that, according to a lot of his friends and families, his drug addiction was not 100% his fault. He was, it wasn't like, he wasn't like one of those reckless people, who's like, "Oh yeah, I'm rich and famous, I'm going to do all these drugs." When he was on SNL, the producers pressured him to go on drugs, because they said, "No, no, no, you can't sleep. We have to, film all this stuff right then and there." And
Yeah.
when a lot of the actors were saying, "We can't do it," it's like, here's some powder, just sniff it and that'll help you out.
I know Dan Aykroyd kind of made it his personal duty that as long as whenever they were working together, he'd try and make sure that Belushi stayed off of drugs. But it was mostly, I think, that one girlfriend, the one who ended up killing him.
Yeah, the girl he was seeing behind his fiance. Yeah, she bought him the heroin, and he wouldn't stop doing it. And from what I heard, though, she's since reformed, and she's now an anti-drug person. So
yeah, there's still a lot of weird stuff about that. I'm not going to get into, because apparently they're cranking down on conspiracy theories. But
it's another celebrity death that everyone acts like it's this mysterious dark mystery, that it's actually pretty obvious: the death of Jim Morrison. It's like everyone's like, "What did he really die of? Did his girlfriend kill him?" It's like, and like his own friends were like, "People, the guy drank like 6 bottles of hard liquor almost every day for most of his life, and on the night he died,
while doing drugs.
Not only did he continue to drink, he went, he did some heroin, and what had happened was that he was sick and he was having a bad reaction, and his girlfriend was saying, "Jim, I think you did something wrong. You need to go to a doctor." And he's like, "No, no, no, I'll be okay. I'll take a bath. Yeah, that's it. I'll take a bath, and I'll feel much better." And she went to bed, because he refused, to go to a doctor, and when she woke up, he wasn't responding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
What number is it? Well, one of those things that people just do. I think it's 26.
Yeah, the
26 club. Or is it the 27
club? Yeah, it's 27.
Okay, the way like a whole bunch of them, like Janis Joplin and all of them, died at 27.
Yeah, I think it was Hendrix. I think Kurt Cobain was one of them.
Yeah, Amy what's her name? Winehouse, something like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Amy Winehouse.
Yeah, there was also that one. I forgot his name. He was a British rock star, and technically he was never found, but he disappeared. And like 10 years after he disappeared, he was declared dead in absentia.
I don't know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I forgot his name. It's something I read on Rock and Roll True Stories. He was a British one, you know. He was a British singer from the 90s, I think.
How old was Ian Curtis when he killed himself?
Oh, of Joy Division?
Joy Division, yeah. He killed himself.
Chris.
He killed himself the night before he was going to fly out to America for their first tour, and they were expecting Joy Division to break out big in America. And
he was 23 when he took his own life.
I knew he wasn't that old.
Yeah. In country? Oh, sorry. Did you
Chris, I wanted to ask, are you getting Scarlet or Violet?
Who?
Are you getting Pokemon Scarlet or Pokemon Violet?
I don't play Pokemon.
I
haven't played Pokemon.
Yeah, we don't know what you're talking about.
I watched the show when I was younger, and I collected some of the cards and merchandise, but I never actually played the game. Yeah.
What generation did you fall off in?
I don't remember. It just got all out of control for me. Like, it's reached the point where the only Pokemon I recognize in the franchise now is Pikachu.
That's the one everybody knows. Even I know Pikachu.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember going back to Ian Curtis, I remember seeing something interesting about him, and according to some people that personally knew him, contrary to what some people believe, it wasn't the fact that his wife was divorcing him that he committed suicide. Suicide, from what I understand, he had actually accepted what had happened. It was because his epilepsy was getting completely out of control, and it was actually affecting his performance. And
well, it was probably a combination of those. Yeah, his epilepsy was really bad. I mean, he had to be carried off the stage more than once because of the epileptic fits. But it did happen the evening after, his wife said she was leaving him. And then she left, and then she hanged himself. So it was probably just a combination of the two. So suicide, despite what, like someone leaving a note saying, this is why I committed suicide, there were probably a lot of other contributing factors.
Oh yeah.
That they didn't mention, probably weren't even consciously aware of.
That's the reason why the TV show 13 Reasons Why is actually hated by actual, experts that deal with treating suicidal people. Because the whole message of that show is she committed suicide because she was bullied, and many experts say yes, things like bullying and stuff like that can contribute to wanting to commit suicide, but there's a lot of factors that go into it.
Yeah.
Because let's be real here. Lots of people get bullied. Lots of people are in situations, where they are, where they are negatively affected, and they're being, abused, and all that. And yet they don't kill themselves. They still hang on to the will to live,
A lot of it is just your personality. Some people can go through hell and back and go, oh, well, that's over. I'm going to get on with my life. And other people, go through a lot less and kill themselves.
Yeah, it's, I mean, and it's one controversial thing. It's one of those things that it's considered wrong to say, but it is something that needs to be said in order to heal properly. Is if you have a loved one, if you were a friend or a family member of someone that killed themselves, here's what you need to remember. This is what an actual psychiatrist said. Do not blame yourself, because no matter what you may or may not have did to that person, it was ultimately their choice to do that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, don't blame yourself. If you blame yourself, you're gonna go down a bad spiral, and it's not gonna be pretty. Yeah, man, it got morbid, but
Yeah, but it's an important topic, though.
oh yeah. It actually reminds me. It actually reminds me of a conversation I had with one of my coworkers at the dog daycare because a dog that that used to come here all the time. Sadly they passed away because of cancer and all that. They were put down, and I jokingly told my coworkers, it's like what's really morbid. That only proves that we treat dogs better than we treat people because what happens when our pets are diagnosed with an untreatable, incurable, and terminal illness that's going to kill them slowly and painfully? We have them passively put to sleep. What happens when you're old and you get something like that? We hook you up to machines and pump you full of morphine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got, and for some reason Twidget is not showing up on the screen, but SPC is asking, do y'all think male and white privilege talk is anti-Semitic? And I don't know where he's coming from with that, but I will say that the Dave Chappelle monologue on Saturday Night Live was hilarious.
I just use the SJW's own logic against them. It's like, well, let's see here. There's a lot of Jews who are white and a lot of Jews who are male, so by that logic, yes.
I don't know why Twidget isn't. There's always something. There's always something that doesn't work right with this live stream.
I once saw one Jewish comedian one time, and he jokingly said, what's the tragic irony about Jews is we are that one religious group where it's considered okay to make fun of or criticize. It's like, oh, you can't criticize Christianity. That's a sacred doctrine. You can't criticize Muslim. That's a religious minority. You can't criticize Buddhism. That's being anti-Asian. Oh, but Jews? Oh yeah, fine. Make all the Jew jokes you want.
Yeah, except he was talking a lot about how Kanye got in trouble for that.
Yeah.
But he made a good point. You can say the word you can say the word Jews, but you can't put the two of them together.
Yeah. That's kind of like, I think there's a joke like that too going around, that says it's like you can say the words ass and you can say the word hole, but you can't combine them on TV.
And as George Carlin pointed out, it was absolutely the opposite with cocktail. You can advertise cocktails all you want. You just can't advertise either of those on its own.
Yeah.
Television mix.
Okay, who's turning this into a mukbang now?
That's Daniel.
What?
We can hear you eat.
Oh.
Yeah.
You need like a push to mute button or something. Or push to talk, either one.
Yeah.
There should be something like that on Discord.
I think there is, but you have to go to the key bindings or something and set it up. I'm not sure. All right, so yeah, SPC, we don't know really where you're coming from with that. So if you want to elaborate, I can put it on the screen.
We don't know if you're just playing a little joke or something like that. Joy Division wasn't grunge. Joy Division was post punk.
Post punk, yeah.
Yeah.
Grunge was a 90s thing.
Yeah. Yeah, as Beavis and Butthead put it, grunge is that like music where those where those guys in Seattle sing out of their garage about how much they suck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with grunge and some of the punk groups of the 90s, because on one hand, they were expressing valuable emotions and all that, but part of me kind of thinks they took it a little too far, and I think they're partially responsible for why a lot of people are taking on nihilistic views these days, is because as a lot of their music was about how life is a joke, it's mean and it's cruel and there's no meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for a lot of them, I mean, I'm not sure if you've seen the Weird Al parody of "Smells Like Teen Spirit" by Nirvana,
yeah.
but the whole point of that parody was like you can't understand what Kurt
What they're
Cobain was
saying.
singing about.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
I don't think Kurt Cobain knew what he was singing about either. I mean, give John Lennon some credit. He at least admitted he had no idea what he was freaking singing about.
Well, he would do that deliberately. The whole point of I Am the Walrus was that he learned that there was some college somewhere. I don't know if it was one of the
they were trying
the
to
Oxbridge colleges, but they were going through Beatles music, finding the deeper meaning, and he's like, there is no deeper meaning. So he wrote I Am the Walrus and said, let him figure that out.
Yep. And then finally, he and the band came out and they're like, do you want to know what the meaning of I Am the Walrus is? Yes, what is it? Here's the true meaning. Me and the guys got drunk and high and wrote some music.
No, I'm not playing any joke. It's just I do believe it's because you're blaming something that's not real. Yeah, I still don't know where you're coming from with that.
I mean, white male privilege, as a concept, it is real. It's just not a problem, like a lot of people are saying it is.
Well, and it's not something that happens to every white person in the
Yeah. Actually, it's
because I mean, if you're a poor white Southerner, you basically have no privilege.
Yeah. Actually, funny I mentioned Beavis and Butthead, because in their news show that Mike Judge made, there actually was an episode where Beavis and Butthead are taking a critical race theory, and they're told they have white privilege, and they say cool, and then they start going around town and start stealing stuff and demanding things for free. And when people are asking why should we give you stuff for free, they're like, because we have white privilege or something.
Also, I'm not quite sure how he made the connection between white privilege and anti-Semitism, considering a lot of Jews aren't. I'd say like half of Jews aren't white at all. A lot of them are from the Middle East. So
yeah.
Yep, there's black Jews, there's Asian Jews.
Yep, they got around just like Muslims. Most Muslims are Asians, not Arabs.
Yep.
Well, I mean, aren't you only really Jewish if you're black?
Huh?
Oh, it was something that I think Nick Cannon said. It was just this crazy thing someone said.
No.
I saw this one funny joke. It was about Muhammad Ali, and it was about someone going, I don't get it. Muhammad Ali, his original name was he was named after a very famous and staunch abolitionist from the Civil War, yet he changed his name to a religious prophet, who not only condones slavery but had slaves of his own. Why would he do something like that? And a person replies, buddy, if Muhammad Ali was capable of such rationality and reasoning, he wouldn't be a boxer.
That's true. But yeah. It is funny. It's like, I had to change it from my white slave name from someone, like you said, was a great abolitionist. And I mean, if you want to talk about black slavery and oppression and mistreatment and everything like that, Europeans and Americans had nothing on the Arabs.
Oh yeah.
When it came to that, and a lot of them are still doing it today. A lot
Yeah,
of those
that's
countries
another.
still have slavery.
Yeah, that's another thing too that often gets ignored. A lot of African nations aren't Arab because aren't Muslim because the Arabs and Ottomans came to their country and convinced them, and they said, "Hey, we like this idea and it has good moral values." It's no, they're Muslim because they came there with force, and they say you all have to abandon your old religions and convert to Islam, or we'll behead you.
I also think it's funny how a lot of these countries, they're saying like, oh, we have to get rid of, capitalism because that's from a white European and we adopt socialism. It's like, where do you think socialism comes from?
Yeah, socialism's been around for a while, but socialism in its modern form comes from France, I think.
Yeah, the popularized form, of course, is from Karl Marx. But yeah, white Europeans.
Who was German.
Yes, a rich white German.
Yep.
Well, actually, I think most evidence says he was quite poor. The guy, like literally never worked a day in his life.
Well, he was raised that way, and I mean, he basically in his adult life, I think he had Engels supporting him, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, from what I heard, he was well off for a long time because he did come from a rich family. But yeah, because he refused to work, because that would be sucking it up to the man, his wife had to work odd jobs, and finally Engels was like, "Here, I'll give you a salary. I'll give you an allowance." Yeah. It's like that one Family Guy skit. It's like, and there's your great great uncle Thomas Griffin. He was a well-respected philosopher. Shows a flashback. Thomas, why won't you get a real why won't you get out of the chair and get a real job? Why?
Okay, we've got Maxine West commenting over on Odyssey. Get a foot pedal and make it your push to talk. I've got one that's push to mute. I can mute myself whenever I want. So if I need to cough or something. I never use Discord. I use Jitsi Meet. I had so much problem when I tried to set up Jitsi Meet. To say he was I am the walrus. It's a Beatles song.
And I can't tell if Maxine West is being a troll, or if he's just failing to be funny.
I don't know. The colors are weird on this plugin. I might have to do like on YouTube and actually capture it, but I don't know if I can do that with Odyssey or not.
It reminds me of that really old video you did where you were responding to BuzzFeed and you talk about how you can't stand the N-word. And I jokingly tell people say this, it's like, I can't stand the N-word either, but ironically, it's not because, it's racist. It's because the only people who say it are cringy people.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're either wannabe ghetto people who think they're going to be the next, P. Diddy, or they're stupid, trolls that are just trying to be edgy, but they're not edgy.
Yeah, I can definitely read it in the Odyssey chat better, because Cad Gray for some reason is off the bottom, but he says, Karl Marx was a Jew who lived in France. He also lived with his dad like a leech. Yeah, I don't remember where he lived.
I do remember reading somewhere that he almost got kicked out of law school because rather than studying hard and taking philosophy, he spent most of his tuition money on drinking and prostitutes.
I think that's got it set up better. Yeah, I might just do the screen cap like I do with the YouTube chat. SBC, I've read the Communist Manifesto and Das Kapital. So.
Yeah. Hoodie Demon, it's sad he's not on anymore, but I remember he had the best argument for people that are trying to do the no true, Scotsman fallacy by saying, no, you have to use, Karl Marx's definition of capitalism and socialism. And it's like, why? Because that's what it says in Das Kapital. And he's like, well, then by that logic, God exists because the Bible says he exists.
Yeah.
And you know the Bible's true because it's the Word of God.
Yeah. How do you know it's the Word of God? 'Cause it's the Bible.
Yeah. And good old circular logic.
Yeah.
Don't question the Holy Bible.
Yep.
I'm not sure if anyone gets that reference.
Mm. I did see this one parody of the Ten Commandments one time where Moses, comes down from the hill and says, "I have these stone templates that were carved given to me from God himself and no one else." And I'm like, "Well, how do we know that? What are you saying? I mean, nobody went up there with you. You went by yourself. How do you know you didn't just write those yourself?"
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh. Wait,
Well-
can you
well-
imagine how people would react if... Oh, sorry.
Well, God wrote them in my handwriting, but
Yeah.
Oh, wait, can you imagine if Christianity was invented today? How would that be like?
Fun. We actually know what that reaction is because when Christianity first appeared, in Rome, it was hated and they were dismissed as crazy because people failed to realize the original Christianity was nothing like, Christianity of today. It was actually a death cult in many ways.
Oh.
Okay, now if I've done this right,
Mm.
that's more or less the Odyssey chat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably
think
the
this'll-
funniest, probably one of the funniest stories I've heard about religious irony was that there was that one Christian movement that was very, very anti-sex, and they had very strict orders that none of their members were supposed to have sex even after marriage. And then they're like, "Wait a minute, why are our numbers declining?"
The Shakers, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think that's going to work better
Yeah.
for the Odyssey chat.
Also, speaking of anti-sex movements, you know about John Kellogg and how he was the reason why we have circumcision and all that. I read an interesting theory by some people that suspect that there's a possibility that John Kellogg, he might have been gay, and that's why he hated sex so much and never consummated with his wife. I mean, we do see that a lot in religion, they say, "I hate gays, they're evil, they're immoral," and all that. And what happens years later? Pastor X was caught with a 17-year-old male prostitute and a whole bunch of methamphetamine.
Ted Haggard,
Yeah.
prominent example. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep, the more people are railing against something, the more you should probably worry.
That's what because
all of these politicians and everyone is railing about, all this child abuse and child abusers and child sex abuse, and it's like the more they go on about it, and the more they screech about it, and the more they want to do stuff about it, the more it makes me wonder if we ought to look into them,
Oh, here's another famous example, and it's with someone we were just talking about, John Lennon. John Lennon was all about how, we need peace, love, and we all need to get along together. And behind closed doors, he was beating up his wives and children for the most silliest of reasons.
Well, and look at the house he was living in when he wrote "Imagine," the song that said "Imagine no possessions." Look at the house he was living in.
Oh,
See
yeah.
how much he lived by that.
Yeah.
He could probably imagine it, but he didn't do much else.
Yeah.
I mean, they were literally busy killing people in China right as he was writing that garbage.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, to his credit, I don't remember if it was him or Paul McCartney, but I think it was him. The song "Revolution," when he said, "If you go carrying pictures from Chairman Mao, you're not going to make it with anyone anyhow."
Mm.
And so he did have that.
Yeah.
Does that mean you're a secret socialist, James, since you're constantly calling him out?
Mm.
I guess I walked into that one, didn't I?
Yeah. But yeah, that whole attitude about how they hate stuff. I commonly say that to because I'm in the furry fandom. A lot of people who are very, 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 very anti-furry and all that, and they do nothing but ramble about it. And I'm like, maybe part of you kind of likes the furry fandom, and that's the reason why you're ashamed to admit it. That's why you're acting the way you are. I actually made a guy who was vehemently anti-furry. I actually made him go silent for a little bit when I said that to him.
Got him thinking.
Yeah. I mean, he still insisted that he hated furries, but he was less vocal about it afterwards.
I just don't get. I mean, it's kind of fun to make fun of furries, but to have this real hatred, just let them do their thing. It's not hurting you.
Yeah, and as many people have pointed out, it's like, yes, there's some degeneracy in the furry fandom, but guess what? There's degeneracy in every fandom.
Yeah.
Yeah, need I remind you about the awful Harry Potter fan fictions or those cringe art pieces of Marvel and DC comic book characters?
Oh, there's all sorts of strange stuff out there.
Yeah.
Rule 34,
Yep. Well, not even just Rule 34, just cringe in general,
I mean, if you just mean cringe like bad writing, yeah.
Yeah. Kind of like what Disney did to Star Wars.
I think we're getting more action in the Odyssey chat. Actually,
Don't get me
Gad Gray
started.
says,
Don't-
Gad Gray says,
don't
I
get me
think most
started,
people
Chris.
are vehemently anti-furry because for some reason, very vocal people insist furries are all into bestiality.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't think they're talking about like actual animals. They're just dressing up,
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, people. It's like, have you seen a furry drawing? It's not, for the most part, it's not an animal. It's an anthropomorphized animal, meaning, yes, they're like a deer or a rabbit, but they walk, talk, and act like a human.
I'm single-handedly holding up Odyssey. Yeah, taking over from Maxine West, who seems to have disappeared.
I mean, there's also accusations of that people in the furry fandom are a certain P word that I won't say because I don't want change channel to get taken off of. But again, that can be found in any fandom.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, look at some of those DC and Marvel characters. There's pictures, of some of the super heroines, dressed up in very skimpy clothing and they're, you can see their cleavage and boobs and all that, and you're like, wow, she's hot. And it's like, yeah, you do realize that canonically speaking, she's only 15 years old.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Although, believe it or not, I think you brought it up. It's actually been established in many precedents that stuff like that, doesn't count as CP because, yeah, it's disturbing, but when you think about it, it's just a drawing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if you've got an actor who's an adult who's playing the role.
Yeah, Yeah, remember the whole "this is not a pipe" argument. Yep.
Plus, no victim, no crime.
Yep. I've actually seen an alternative philosophy version, a philosophy of the whole "this is not a pipe," only instead of a pipe, it's a horse. It's a picture of a horse, and it's like, and you go, "What is this a picture of?" And everyone says, "Well, it's a horse." Nope, it's not a horse. Is it a stripeless zebra? Nope. Is it a pony? Nope. Well, then what is it? It's not a horse. It's a drawing of a horse.
I always did that with music, like hold up a piece of sheet music. And you say, what is this? And they say, it's music. And I'm like, no, it's not. I hold it up to my ear. I don't hear anything. Music is audible.
Yeah, it's noise.
Yep. Sheet music is instructions to musicians for how to play the music.
Yep.
And I usually relate that to math because all the weird symbols and everything that you put down isn't math. It's a way that mathematicians communicate math to each other,
Yep.
but it's not what
Yeah.
fundamentally is.
Yeah. As crazy it is to believe, numbers don't physically exist.
Nope, they're
That's not
abstract concepts.
Yep.
They just relate to each other in useful ways.
Yep.
I am starting to become less and less accepting of abstract concepts because nobody can fucking define what a man or a woman is at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just go back to that old South Park to that South Park episode they did where they did a parody of Great Expectation where Pip asks his brother-in-law because he's in love with a girl and he's like brother-in-law, do you know anything about women? Oh, I sure do. Women are them things with the vaginas in them. No. I mean about their attitude, how they think and feel. Oh, I don't know that. Yeah, nowadays when you try to talk about, what is a woman, it sounds like you're debating with that one guy from Life of Brian. Yeah.
Guy.
Yeah.
I want you to call me Loretta.
Yeah, the one that wants to be the guy that wants to have babies. It's like, how are you supposed to have babies? You don't have a womb. Where you gonna get the fetus? A box? Yeah, it's like,
well, let's fight for his right to have babies.
Yeah, his right to deny reality, or whatever the line was.
Goes into, again, Gray just posted on Odyssey. I noticed there is an issue with people being unable to divorce fact from fiction, even choosing to believe fiction if it's more compelling, even if it's provably wrong. Yep.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And the thing is, in my case at least, it wasn't difficult at all for, me to teach my kids the difference between, reality and fiction. Like, when you see a TV show, it's fiction and that's different from reality. It wasn't that difficult at all. I mean, they just kind of got the idea. So
yeah.
And that a lot of mass propaganda is using this to convince people that women aren't women. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I can't believe, SJWs did it because, personally I don't like her. Like, I mean, I like her books, but I personally don't like her as a person, but I had to defend J.K. Rowling because everyone's saying, "Oh, she hates, transsexual people," and all that. It's like, no, she doesn't hate transsexual people. She's just saying, it's like, listen, guys, we can't, women are women,
Well, and this is coming to a head now that you've got coming into adulthood, the first ones who were basically transitioned by their parents when they were a teenager, given the puberty blockers and all that. And they're speaking out because, they've had to try and detransition.
Yeah.
Because it turns out they weren't trans to begin with.
Yep. Their parents wanted a trans child either because it was trendy or because I've heard there is a condition where a mother gives birth, but she wants like a boy or a girl, but she doesn't get that,
Yeah. Well, that's, Ed Wood, the guy who made like Plan 9 from Outer Space and all those terrible movies. He was a transvestite. Huh?
His name is Ed Wood, I think.
Yeah, Edward D. Wood Jr. He was, when he was, I think he was the only child, his mother had wanted a girl. And so when his father wasn't around, she'd dress him up in, in girls' clothes and, call him his daughter and everything. And that was the only time he got the love from his mother. And so as an adult, he just liked to wear women's clothes. And especially when he gets stressed out, he'd put on like an Angora sweater and a wig.
Yeah.
He wasn't, he was married to a woman, so he was straight. He identified as male. He didn't think of himself as a woman, but he liked dressing like that.
Yeah. I've actually heard from some people saying that's another thing that they're not too fond of, with the whole trans thing is because like there's people, that, like there's like I've even heard this from some people, that are into drag. It's like, listen, I am not trans. I identify as a man. I'm a gay man, but I still identify as a man. I just do drag because I like doing it. It's a performance, but Nowadays, there's all these people saying, "Oh, it's so good, that you're giving inspiration to trans people," and they're like, "Well, I'm not really trans."
A lot of them are saying do not take inspiration from us because they're, dressing outrageously and doing all these outrageous things,
That's another thing too that people are forgetting. The whole point of the drag queen movement is in a way to kind of mock the fashion industry as well as celebrate it.
Yeah.
Because I've actually heard some trans people even say this. I mean, they dress in a way that if they were an actual woman, you wouldn't find them attractive. You'd actually find them ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like if you've ever seen a woman in real life who tries to make herself up like a model in a magazine and it just doesn't work.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, they're people are talking about like that standards of beauty. Well, it's different when it's just a still image on the page than when you're, in reality walking, moving around, and
Yeah.
it's a completely different. It's just like if you're doing art, you will set something up completely differently if it's for a still image than if it's for an animation.
Yeah, I think we had this conversation one time during one live stream that people can literally get a different impression from a face, even though it's literally the exact same face, based
Yeah.
on if you put an image behind it.
The Kuleshov effect, yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned that there was that study they did where they took a guy and they took a picture of him and he had like the most emotionally neutral face ever. And
Mhm.
if you took it as is, you would say, it's just an average guy, doesn't matter. But if you put different images behind him and asked people who didn't know the context of the photo, what this guy was thinking, they came up with all certain stuff.
Yeah, that was what Lev Kuleshov did originally in like 1919, 1917, something like that.
Yeah.
Basically in the silent era, but it was just a guy with a neutral expression staring at the camera. When they intercut it with, some food on a table, people thought he was hungry. When they intercut it with the, child in a casket, they thought he was sad. Same shot.
Yep.
If it's not about gender norms, then I wonder why there have been no drag women, only men. Because I guess if women do it, technically it isn't drag.
Yep.
It's just a fashion show.
Yep.
Well,
it is so ironic how South Park predicted so much of the future. Like one
Yeah.
perfectly good example is the death camp of tolerance that many people are pointing out to now is that, when Mr. Garrison tries to deliberately get fired, so he acts completely inappropriate and like a flamboyant homosexual, and he more or less, shows sexual imagery to children, and everyone praises him. A lot of people are starting to see that now. It's like they're praising like these teachers that are like, this teacher is showing, these kids, inappropriate stuff and all that. Oh, they are so brave and courageous. It's like, no, that guy, he's supposed to be teaching your kids math and science, not. Yeah.
That's actually what the so-called "Don't Say Gay" bill in Florida was about. It had nothing to do with gay people. It had nothing to do with whether you could say it. It was just about keeping that stuff to the age-appropriate grades.
Yeah, wait until they're in high school or at the very least like middle school before you start teaching them about, about sex and all that stuff. If they're only third,
Well,
if they're only in,
really, it's mostly, again, I'm coming back to this. It's the parents that that have the responsibility for it, and the tactic I took about it, which I think works. Of course, I can only speak for my kids, but I just kind of kept an eye on the things that they were curious about or that they asked me about directly, and that was kind of how I know they were ready to talk about a certain subject, and just approach it very carefully. Don't just overload them with stuff right off the bat.
Yeah.
But kids are curious about stuff like that, and so you just have the conversation with them, to meet the level of their curiosity at that age, and just kind of go from there.
I saw one person that said, listen, if you don't want to have the awkward talk with them, and you don't want them to be trained by a perverted school teacher, just send them to a farm for a summer.
Yep, look at the animals.
Yeah. I saw a joke like that one time, where where like some little kids, you know, are watching a porn video, and like a lot of them are like shocked and they're confused and they don't know what's going on. And finally the country kids like, oh, they're having sex, and everyone looks at him, including the adults, and like, how do you know that? He's like, I grew up on a farm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not exactly sure what Gad Gray is talking about. How many books have been found in libraries for children that were extremely sexual and even involve kids in sexual situations? But you do things like see things like Romeo and Juliet. Believe it or not, they were 13 years old.
Yeah. To be fair though, back then that was actually a very common, you know, courting age, you know. Yeah. I mean, no, we look back and we, you know, like there's been a lot of cases, you know, I've seen with documentaries where like, it's like, did you know this one US president, he was like 28 years old and his wife was only 15? And I'm just thinking, yeah, that was pretty common practice back in those days.
Well, Hamlet, Ophelia wasn't quite, you know, she was just like on the verge of going up into the higher grades, and I don't know what the levels are, but basically that would have been at 15. So she was either just under 15, like 14 or 15, you know, right at it. And then Hamlet, in the Gravedigger scene, they established that Hamlet's 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean,
that was really because Richard Burbage was 30, but you know. But yeah, that's how it ended up.
Yeah, I actually even saw, you know, a psychiatrist, you know, talk about this, and he was talking about, you know, historical and all that, and they say that contrary to what some people say now, and he said, now listen, I am not justifying the P word or anything. I'm just giving an explanation. It's actually natural for men to be attracted to younger women because once you reach your teens, you know, between your teens and your and your 30s, that's actually when you're the most fertile and most potent. So
yeah.
So basically, it's your reptilian brain saying, "Oh, she's fertile and potent. She'll be perfect, you know, to carry on the next generation."
Yeah, and it's just the way humans have developed that women reach that peak like 18 or 20, and men don't reach it until 30.
Yeah, you know.
It's a weird thing that happened, but that's evolution for you.
Yeah, you know, I mean, and again, the guy did say, you know, that's not, you know, to say it's right or anything. We're just saying we have to remember, you know, we can't be treating people that, you know, are attracted. We can't be automatically treating people who admit they're attracted to that kind of people, you know, like they're a potential criminal and all that, you know. Because, you know, the thing is,
there are natural attractions for a straight male to any nubile female, you know, as long as she's reached that age. It's when it's lower than that you'll start having some issues.
And another thing too, and you know, this is actually something, because I did read, like, it was like, to play the devil's advocate here, and this is something that also doesn't want to get talked about. Most P words, they have no intention to carry out their desire. Yeah.
Well, you've also got this thing about these parents who are just like psychopathic or pathological or whatever the right word is about just not wanting their kids to be sexual in any way because they were I think it was when we're getting whispers from Daniel. It was when God, when was that? I don't remember, but it was something. Oh yeah, it was when what was her name? She was the Surgeon General, and she wasn't for long under Bill Clinton because she started talking about the health benefits of masturbation.
I remember her from Penn and Teller's
Joycelyn Elders.
She was that part of my language. She was that black woman, you know, who was fired from Surgeon General because she said, listen, you know, we need to be teaching our kids about sex and things like masturbation because that's just a natural part of an actual healthy committed, you know, sexual being. And
I forget who it was, but it was one of the ones was really going like, I don't want my 15-year-old daughter thinking about that. It's like, lady, if you don't think your 15-year-old daughter is doing that, you're just deluding yourself.
Oh yeah,
they're doing that by age 15.
Please, I had a largely female friend group in middle school.
They're probably doing it by 13, let's be honest.
I had a largely female friend group in middle school. Horny as hell.
That thing like you see in a lot of the it's kind of a trope in porn about, oh, I've never done anything like that. Can you teach me to pleasure myself? No, you don't need it. They'll figure it out.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not at all realistic that people
Yeah,
figure it out.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember seeing an episode, Penn and Teller bullshit, and they do talk about that stuff, and it turns out that while they may not, be the best at it at first, especially without, guidance, humans naturally, know how to self-pleasure themselves. It's a natural instinct for a lot of people.
Well, and I've pointed this out before, but a lot of people talk about, the porn today, how degrading that is and what it's doing to our modern society and what it's like that. Look at porn that was made, like, in France back in, like the silent era. It's pretty much the same.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
we got better filmmaking techniques, but as far as all the stuff they were doing, that's just how people have always had sex for thousands of years. This generation is doing nothing new. The stuff you see in the videos on Pornhub or wherever is nothing new. Human beings have always done that.
Yeah, going back to the furry fandom, a lot of the ancient Greek stories are furry porn.
Yeah.
Because what is a common trope in a lot of those Greek fables? Zeus falls in love with a mortal woman. He transforms himself into an animal, and then he makes love to the woman in the form of that animal.
Red Riding Hood is a cautionary tale about pedophiles. The wolf is a pedophile in that story.
Yeah, that's another thing that often gets ignored. I think there was a YouTuber who did the messed up origins, and he revealed that in the original origins of Little Red Riding Hood, the wolf didn't want to eat Little Red Riding Hood. He actually wanted to sleep with her.
Yeah.
Because if in the original fable the wolf didn't say, "Oh yeah, it's better to hold you with, my dear," what he actually said was, "Why don't you get into bed, honey?"
Mm-hmm.
And the Little Red Riding Hood's like, "Okay, I'll do that." And she's like, "No. Take your clothes off while you do it too." And that's when Little Red Riding Hood goes, "Wait a minute, what's going on here?"
Well, it kind of depends. We don't really know what the original is, because even when you go back, several centuries, there are like a bunch of different versions of the stories, and somewhere, she gets abused by him, and then others where she gets the upper hand on him,
Yeah.
So there are all sorts of different versions.
Yeah.
Of that story, not just the Grimm or the Perrault. What did Perrault do that? I know the Grimm brothers did. I don't remember if Perrault did that or not.
Yeah, those fairy tales are messed up,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like if you read like the Grimm version of Cinderella, when the prince was going around with the golden slipper to see whose shoe fits it, the evil stepmother, with her daughter, she was like cutting off their toes to try and make it fit.
We read the original one, and
Well, again, hold up. Grimms are not the originals. They were just compiling stories that had existed for centuries.
Yep. That's another thing too, people. Copying is not stealing.
Yep. Nope. Everyone told their own versions of that story.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear. I mean, they even taught you this, in English class, that there's really only 3 original stories. Man versus self, man versus man, and man versus nature, and everything else is just a copy of those 3 original stories.
Yep, just some variation on it.
Yeah.
And I mean, people nowadays would say, well, what about science fiction, man versus aliens? If you look at it, the aliens are either a stand-in for one of those 3. They're either a reflection of ourselves, and out, the stand-in for other people that we have to deal with, like the aliens represent Nazis or something, or they're a force of nature. It's still one of those 3.
Technology.
There's
also man versus technology.
I would consider that a category of man versus man, because that's what a lot of those technology stories, those technology overtakes man stories tend to have. They tend to be about mankind gives into his desire to wanna, or in some cases it could even be man versus himself, because some of those stories are about man who gives in his desire to be lazy, and it has bad consequences.
Yeah, and I mean, technology is not a new thing. A suit of armor was technology. A sword is technology.
When a caveman first tied a pointy rock to a stick to make a spear, that was technology.
A bow and arrow is technology, and there are stories going back to antiquity about the problems of technology.
Yep.
Yeah. And then there's also
Lovecraft,
I
Man
think,
versus the Unknown.
Society.
I think Man versus the Unknown would be like a takeoff of Man versus Man,
Honestly-
because it's really man's fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
Honestly, the world was a lot better when we just memorized everything instead of writing it down.
All right, Socrates.
There's also Man versus Society, I think.
That's Man
Is
versus
the YouTube
Man.
chat working? No, we usually have a lot more activity in the YouTube chat, and I haven't gotten anything since SPC's comment about Marx.
I've seen quite a few, so I don't know. Yeah.
Let me see.
Yeah, Man versus Society. Yeah, that would be Man versus.
Yeah, that's Man versus
Man
Man.
versus
Or in the case-
a large
or-
collective of other.
Or in the case of Franz Kafka, Man versus himself. Yeah, here's a fun fact about Franz Kafka. A lot of people have tried to interpret the trial and the political stuff, and I don't know if Franz Kafka himself said so, but according to one of his friends or something, Franz Kafka said that the trial wasn't necessarily about politics. It was about an internal struggle, and the whole thing about John Kay not realizing what he's being put on trial for is kind of an allegory for how a lot of people feel sometimes when we encounter people who don't like us, and we're like, well, why don't you like me? I don't have to tell you that.
Yeah.
Well, what can I do? Well, what can I do to improve, your opinion of me? I don't have to tell you that. Stuff like
Yeah.
that.
It was Joseph K. Yeah, but
Yeah,
how many of us have been in a relationship? She's been mad at you. It's like, what did I do? Well, if you don't know, then I'm certainly not going to tell you. Yeah, so
Yeah.
yes, there have been a lot of things posted to YouTube that I missed out on. Let's see. Dana Durnford and Kevin Blanche. The Holy Bible, 66 fairy tales written by 40 authors in 3 languages on their continents approximately 1,600 years ago, and modified 100 times by men for political purposes since then.
Yeah.
A couple of these are, the context is gone, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Good. I mean, I'd be a wealthy person if I could if I had, I don't know, maybe a penny for every time I've heard someone trying to skew Christianity or any religion to suit their interests.
We'll see you
Well,
again,
like-
Gray. Thanks for giving us some chat in the Odyssey. So that's
Yeah.
good.
Well, I
The
mean-
absolute wor- and the absolute worst are the people who are like, actually, Jesus was a socialist. All those.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Well, I will
Because
say
Jesus
that-
Jesus was actually against the Pharisees and the Sadducees who were trying to do that stuff, through central planning and all that. He was like, no, you do it yourself.
And actually, this kind of goes back to the whole what if we're wrong and all that you brought up. Like so many people are saying, well, what if you're wrong? What if it turns out that God is real? And I've heard how many atheists say, well, then I'll admit I'm wrong, but that won't change a thing about the Bible and the fact that it's
Yeah.
clearly a man-written rule and it's not the word of God.
Well, and I made this point too. If it turns out God is real and we discover him, it's the atheists who are in a better position to learn about him because we don't have all this baggage. The Christians are going to be trying to, shove him into the Bible. And even
if God is real,
even if God said, no, listen, the Bible's just a bunch of stories created by people, they would still say something like, oh, he's just testing our faith or something like that.
Yeah, like you said, it would be the atheists who would be in a much better position to say, oh, well, I guess I was wrong, but, I will say, God, you didn't make your existence pretty clear, and we could actually sit down and have a conversation with him.
Yeah.
Whereas everyone else would be treating him, like how they treat Brian. God would just be sitting there trying to do his duties, and everyone's like, Heavenly Father, tell us what to do. And it's like, leave me alone. I am busy trying to run the universe here.
Figure it out for yourself. I gave you a brain for
Yeah.
a reason.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to run the universe here, people. Yes, you are a powerful being. Yeah, thank you. Now, can you please just leave me alone? You're in heaven now. Go enjoy yourself. Go talk to your dead loved ones. Okay, Heavenly Father. Thank you. Why are you still here?
And for me's sakes, stop all of this stuff against sex. I made sex feel good for a reason.
Yeah.
If I didn't want you to do it, I would have added spikes or something.
Yeah. Well, if he wanted us to have spikes, he would have made us cats.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually saw a parody of that one time where it showed what if God was real, and it shows God encountering his followers, but instead of being honored and holied by them, he actually finds them creepy, especially when they tell, about the sacrament and all that, and the blood and body of Christ. His reaction isn't, "Oh, you are so loyal, my children." His reaction is, "Okay, you guys stay the hell away from me and my son. I mean it."
Yep.
Yeah. Heck, there's a creative website, horror series based off of Lovecraft called the SCP Foundation, and there's actually an SCP that's just like that, where they have a teenage Cthulhu who's, a powerful eldritch being, but he's just a teenager that wants to live his life. But every time he tries to, just have a normal teenage life, a bunch of death cultists, come in and start mutilating themselves, and he's like, "Guys, leave me alone. I'm just a kid. I just want to, do my homework and play video games. Why are you castrating yourselves and eating each other's flesh in front of me?" Yeah, just leave me alone.
More lovely stray sounds coming from Daniel.
Yeah.
I got it taken care of.
All that SCP story needs is they need a part where Shig Niggeroth appears, and she's like, "Go away and leave him alone. But he's our divine."
What did you say, Chris? Do you want to get this channel suspended?
That's the name. Shub. It's HP Lovecraft.
Shag Niggeroth or something like that.
Yeah, she's supposed to appear and say, "Go away and leave him alone. But he is our unholy abomination eldritch savior." And she should go, "He is not your abnormal savior. He is a very naughty boy. Who are you?" "I'm his mother." "Oh, blessed the accursed mother." Yeah.
Shub Niggeroth.
Yeah. Yeah, she's some sort of, she looks like a cockroach with a bunch of teeth and tentacles coming out of her mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's Lovecraft.
The one I'm looking at on Wikipedia, she's got tentacles to basically all around her, more like a sea urchin or something.
Yeah. The funny irony is that the whole thing about the teenage Cthulhu, that actually fits the Lovecraft mythos, very well, because many people forget the whole point of the Lovecraftian eldritch beings isn't that they're powerful and they demand worship. It's that they're so powerful that they literally do not give a damn about humanity because we're nothing to them. Yeah, they're the type. But yeah, the whole point of Lovecraft.
To the god, something like, what is that? To the gods we are but their playthings or something like that.
Well, not even that. It's kind of well established for a lot of the gods in Lovecraft that let's say if Cthulhu were to accidentally blow up the earth, to step on the earth and destroy it, his reaction wouldn't be, "Ha ha ha, I am a powerful deity and I did this." His reaction would be, "Ew, I think I stepped in something."
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the whole point of Lovecraftian horror. It's not that the gods are powerful and divine, it's that they don't care or don't notice us. If I recall correctly, in the Lovecraft universe, the only being that actually interacts with humans is Nyarlathotep. And even then, he only sees humans as playthings.
Yeah, most of the real horrors came from what the people were doing.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, that was the whole point of some of the stories. There was a story about about a cult that was doing all these wicked things to appease their god and all that, and their god finally appears and they're all ready to embrace in his glory. And what does he do? He accidentally steps on them and kills them all. And he didn't even notice. I'll be right back. I gotta get something to drink.
All right. What Fenrir is talking about kind of reminds me of an anime I watched called Chainsaw Man. I haven't heard of that one. Our youngest is into anime, so she fills me in with a lot of the stuff.
How old is your youngest?
She's 13, but she's basically 13 going on 25. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, one of those.
I've been trying to get into anime, but I'm not really sure what to start with. That's the problem.
No, wait, I'm sorry. She's 14.
It depends on it depends on what genres you're into.
Oh.
Pick a genre, I can probably get you some recommendations.
Cool. I mean, I do like sci-fi stuff.
What kind of sci-fi? Hard sci-fi, space opera?
Yeah, like it's kind of like, I mean, I do like Star Wars, so I mean, I guess a space opera would be good.
Oh, you got the whole Gundam saga.
Okay, cool.
IMDU said the same thing, Gundam.
You got Space Battleship Yamato, Space Pirate Captain Harlock. Those are classics.
I know about Yamato because when I was, I don't know, really about, I guess maybe early teens or preteens or something like that, they had syndicated it as a half-hour series called Star Blazers. I got to do it.
Is someone hammering in the background?
Not from my mic.
I think it's from Sid.
Oh, it is? I mean, I'm in the basement with like no one else here, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think we're getting some background noise from me, like a pounding or something.
Oh, and of course, Cowboy Bebop is a classic.
It's too regular to be hammering.
Oh,
It's
okay,
like
yeah, I have heard of that.
bomb,
Yeah.
bomb, bomb, bomb. It's just really regular.
Might be from upstairs.
And Trigun, which is more of a desert punk sci-fi.
Oh, what did you say? Trigon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do they have any real hard sci-fi, like in the style of Clark or Heinlein or someone like that?
Not sure what I'd recommend on that front.
Well, where it's you know what I'm talking about, where they're really like dedicated to the laws of physics and trying to get a more realistic portrayal.
Actually, Gundam has its own fairly in-depth physics.
Well, yeah, but when you're talking with like self-consistent physics, there's still a difference between the hard science fiction and just more well thought out fantasy. Like, if you have, because they tried to stay as closely as they could within the laws of physics. Gary, Indiana.
I think some of the Universal Century material for Gundam would be your best bet on that.
It's funny thing about Gary, Indiana, because I was talking to some people who are from Gary, Indiana, and they're like, and they're like, yeah, it's a rough town, but I think people are exaggerated. Like, they act like, it's this terrible place and you can't walk 2 seconds without getting mugged or shot. And the worst thing that ever happened that I ever saw when I lived there as a kid was one of my neighbors. Their house got raided because their kids were throwing a wild party with underage drinking.
I think if it weren't for the Music Man, I never would have heard of it.
Yeah.
Oh, but that was in Indiana?
People failed to realize from Gary, Indiana. Yeah.
Oh. But that was in Indiana, you said?
Gary, Indiana. Gary,
that reminds me.
Whenever not Louisiana.
Whenever I'm
Paris,
in like a gun control discussion with someone, and I, sorry, what were you saying?
He was just singing a song from the Music Man.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that just reminds me. Whenever I'm in a gun control discussion with someone, and I bring up the fact that Chicago has a lot of shootings in spite of its strict gun control, the excuse they always bring up is, oh, that's just because it's right next to Indiana, and that's where all the guns are coming from.
Yeah, which raises the question, why isn't the crime worse in Indiana?
Yeah.
And one of the ones I
Yeah.
responded to even blamed Mississippi. It's like, Mississippi isn't anywhere close to... And oh god, I'm working on a story. I don't know if it's going to be Biggest Bogon Emitter or Idiot Extraordinaire, but in New Jersey, they're talking about, because with the Bruin decision this past year, they still said that you could restrict guns in, what would they call it, like sensitive areas or something like that, and they're basically trying to declare all of New Jersey a sensitive area. And there's this like 2-hour long thing with the assemblyman about it, and one of them I'm either going to give BBE or IE to, haven't decided which. But I mean, when you listen to the whole thing, oh my god. You had sensible people on one side, and then the other side, well, one of them was from Moms Demand Action, another was from the Brady campaign, and it's just...
Yeah.
Oh. In other words,
they were trying to bring up their BS statistics, and they were explaining why that didn't really mean anything.
I mean,
but you did have a lot of people standing up and pointing about how even racist and sexist it is, including people who were like, training, people who are buying a gun for the first time, and how more and more they're women and minorities.
I remember, how like there's a big joke, especially in the rest of the world, in a lot of places, that in America you can practically get guns at a Walmart or a vending machine or whatever, and then the COVID-19 thing hit, and there were all those riots, and because of the food shortage and all, so people were buying guns, and there were all these people saying, "Why can't I buy a gun off of Amazon, or why do I gotta pay to have it transferred to a gun dealer?"
Well, a lot of that was the summer of unrest, the Black
Yeah.
Lives Matter riots and all those.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're like, "Well, that's stupid. I need a gun now. I'm in the heart of, where all the civil unrest is occurring. Whose idiotic idea was it to make these stupid laws? It was you." Yeah.
Has anyone, I guess on the subject, has anyone seen that Michael Moore gun control propaganda film? What's it called? Bowling for Columbine?
Bowling for
Yeah.
Columbine, yeah. Yeah, we talked about that before, like how there's this one scene where he supposedly just walks in off the street into a store, buys a gun, and walks out with it a few minutes later. And what he didn't tell people is that he had ordered the gun in advance, went through all the background checks, and he was just picking it up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I also remember one person brought up a pretty good point, because he had that one skit where he talked about, all these US war crimes and all that, and, all this bad stuff the United States military did. And there was a comment that said, yeah, that's horrible, and the US government should be held accountable for that, but what does that have to do with gun control?
Yep.
Yeah. What does the United States bombing a pill factory in Iran have to do with gun control?
Yep. But I mean, you saw like the level of his investigative journalism is.
Yeah.
It was either called Sick or Sicko or something like that, where he was trying to say that socialized medicine was great by going to Cuba. And he just went to Cuba and said, "Hey, government, show me a hospital." And of course, they showed him the best one, the one they reserved for the elites and the tourists and all that.
Oh yeah, and there were all these Cuban refugees and exiles saying that is not what an average Cuban hospital looks like. The average Cuban hospital is a hut with a small box filled with Band-Aids and a rusty saw.
Yeah, I mean, you can look online and you can see pictures people have posted of the conditions actually inside Cuban hospitals, and you're probably better off wherever you are than you are in the Cuban hospital.
I mean, we kind of saw a similar thing, with Venezuela. There were a lot of people that were going to Venezuela with Hugo Chavez and later Nicolas Maduro, and they were like, "Oh yeah, he showed me all this stuff. There was a great hospital. There was a supermarket full of food, and people were happy and hungry." And it's like, there's all these people living in Venezuela or have fled Venezuela saying, "Yeah, because you went to Chavez and Maduro and said, show me what Venezuela's like. Of course, they're going to take you to the best part." The average Venezuelan doesn't live like that.
But you see, an actual investigative journalist would have known to dig deeper than that and actually go and seek out another hospital.
Yeah, I mean, it's always funny when I'm listening to socialists talk about places like Cuba and such and such. They're like, hey, look how well they're doing despite the sanctions they're getting, and we're like, no, they're not doing well at all. And then they retort with like, yeah, obviously because of the sanctions. So that's some weird
Yeah.
circular reasoning right there.
Yeah, they've all got their excuses.
Yep.
How they, prior to and even during 2013, they were hailing it as, oh, see, this is a perfect example of socialism working. Venezuela's proof that socialism works. And then it collapses and it goes, well, it wasn't real socialism. It was state capitalism.
Yeah.
Or
Wasn't
they
the tune you were
blame
singing before when everything looked like it was going great.
Yeah, either that or they, as I said, they blame the U.S. sanctions.
Actually, according to some people who are from Venezuela, a common thing they were doing, it's a common thing that happened, once the U.S. pulled out, like when there was no American and people were pointing out there are no Americans in Venezuela. What did Maduro do then? He said, okay, it's not the Americans, it's those damn Colombians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Planet of the Humans. Michael Moore didn't mention nuclear energy once. That's probably a good thing, because if he had, he would have lied about it. Oh, Germany's learning now, aren't they? They should be getting into their cold winter now.
Yeah. I mean,
I think his name. What's his name? Olaf Stoltz, something like that. The new chancellor. He was saying, yeah, can we not shut down those last couple of nuclear power plants? And I think they're reversing it, but they're not going to be getting any power from them until next summer, because that takes a while. So, yeah, they're going to have a tough winter.
Yeah. I mean, for all his faults, I mean, Donald Trump was right when he warned them against their I'm not sure what he was. I think he was either against their.
He was talking about Nord Stream. Yeah, he was warning them against relying on Nord Stream.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've now they're learning their lesson the hard way.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, for years I've been comparing Germany to France, because Germany said we're going all renewables, and then when they did that, their carbon output way increased, because now they're more dependent on oil and natural gas, because renewables just don't cut it. France went nuclear, and even though for a few years there, I think they were starting to get away from it, they still got a really good nuclear fleet, and their carbon emissions are way down. And power's a lot cheaper there.
76 degrees last Thursday and 44 degrees now on Friday. Man, beer pig.
Put those 1 day apart, and that's North Carolina. It was literally like 81 the other day, and now it's in the 40s. Yeah, I think it's pretty much been confirmed at this point that the environmentalist movement in Germany, who was insisting they shut down all of the nuclear power plants, was astroturfing from Russia to make them more dependent.
Yes.
I've actually read that, and I've talked to it with P and I think Ponydev, and a lot of them have said there's actually been links, that a lot of these anti-fracking and anti-nuclear energy programs in Europe, they're actually getting a lot of funding from Russian oligarchs. Why? Because if a lot of these European nations go nuclear, they'll be less dependent on coal and natural gas. And Russia, up until the Ukraine war, they were the biggest provider of natural gas and coal to a lot of European Union nations.
And now there's that sabotage of the Nord Stream pipelines that means that they're not going to be able to get it. And of course, I would never suggest that America did anything wrong with them. I'm just going to point out that although Russia was the number one provider of natural gas, the United States is number 2. So now they're really dependent on us. Just saying.
I mean, I'm not gonna say anything until we know what's going on, because
we know. Come on, we know. Based on where it was and what was seen in the area, that we know. I mean, they're not going to investigate. They're not going to make it. Of course, they're not. Oh, it was confirmed that the missiles that hit Poland were from Ukraine. You know, that kind of accidentally went wayward and stuff like that. But, you know, the, what's his name? The head of NATO came out and said, well, yes, they were Ukrainian missiles, but it's still Russia's fault. View says, I thought it was a Midwest thing, talking about the weather. There was a local news station here in North Carolina. I think it was in Raleigh, but it was a cartoon, and the top part was a 4-panel comic, and it was like rain, and the guy was holding an umbrella, and it said Louisiana, and then another guy was bracing himself against the wind, you know, with his coat, and it said Chicago, and then one was in the snow, and it said like Washington, and one was in the blazing heat, and it said Arizona. And then at the bottom, there were those same 4 images, only all in one panel together. And at the top, it said North Carolina. And at the bottom, it said Thursday. That's basically it. Yeah, I remember a number of years ago, one April, we got this snowstorm, and it was like 6 or 8 inches of snow. And then the next day, it was up at 80 degrees. And of course, the snow had iced over, so it wasn't melting. So, you know, you're outside and there's snow everywhere, and people are in shorts and a t-shirt. Chris, you know what this Dubs the Wizard guy is talking about, or is that BS? Hello?
Yeah, I have no idea who he is.
All right, Dubs, if this is a joke, say it's a joke. If it's not, I'm going to block you. Because I don't put up with this crap. Come on, Dubs, do the right thing. Okay, yeah. Okay, that's taken care of.
Yeah, I don't know. He messaged me on Discord, and I'm just like, I do not know who the hell you are.
Yeah. Someone trying to cause trouble.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I guess that kind of thing happens. No one else in Odyssey, it looks like.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I am incapable of doxing someone because I do not have the technical skills that a lot of those 4chan people have.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay, then show me the screenshot. Yeah, I just
I remember when the last guy that came in and put all these screenshots, and me and everyone else was showing all sorts of crazy screenshots of people saying things. Those are so easy to fake.
Yeah.
You can make it look like anyone said anything with a screenshot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the reason. Yeah, that's the reason why. Yeah, that's the reason why I remember Ross Ulbricht's mother saying this in an interview with John Stossel. That's the reason why the evidence, the screenshot of Ross Ulbricht supposedly hiring a hitman was thrown out of court was because many people flat out said it's very easy to fake something like that.
Well, they were saying that about all the stuff they were introducing about the server logs. None of them showed any digital signatures anyway, so all you'd have to do is go into a text editor and modify it however you wanted to. When they should have been signed, so it looks like they deliberately stripped off the signatures. Yep, that was another kangaroo court. And guess in which jurisdiction it was. I should make a list of that sometime. All the kangaroo court cases that came out of the Southern District of New York. Because there's that, and there's Martha Stewart, and there's a lot of the more recent ones we've been talking about. That and the D.C. Circuit Court. I recently did a video on insider trading, and I talked a little bit about the Martha Stewart case. I just got to say, I did not scratch the surface on what a kangaroo court that was. I don't know, the thing about the Southern District of New York is they are incredibly corrupt and incredibly leftist. And in particular, Judge Catherine Forrest, the one in the Ross Ulbricht trial, she was appointed by Chuck Schumer. And if you look at her record, if it's a case where Chuck Schumer has had nothing to say, she actually does pretty good. She follows the Constitution, the rule of law. As soon as Chuck Schumer opens his mouth, she throws it all out. And in the case of Ross Ulbricht, he got up and made this big speech about how Ross Ulbricht should be put in jail for life, and, well, she made that happen, didn't she? So, yeah, it's all political. It's all political. Not sure what that means. New York State is more Republican than Ontario is conservative. But it's one of those things where if you look at, one of those heat maps where it shows all the districts and what they voted, red for Republican and blue for Democrat, New York is actually mostly red, except for all the stuff crammed down on New York and another, I think, for Albany.
Same thing in my state. I looked up the governor results, and obviously Tony Evers won. And guess what I saw? Like pretty much 90% of all of Wisconsin was red, and there were only a few tiny hand spots that were blue. But where were those tiny hand spots of blue? They were in places like Milwaukee, Madison, my town, all that.
It's the same here, except they're mainly concentrated on Charlotte, and then there's also the Triangle, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, and then kind of up in the northeastern part of the state. There's some blue up there too.
Yeah, people. That's the reason why we have an electoral college and not a direct democracy.
Yep. It's called the urban-rural divide. It's been a problem since the founding of our country.
Yeah.
It's a division. It's a division greater than North versus South. Greater than free state versus slave state, greater than any of those is urban versus rural.
Yep.
So, I mean, I guess the anti-electoral college people justify that by saying, oh, but that's where, everyone lives. Hardly anyone lives in rural areas.
That's what Mr. Beats said. Yeah, he was like, I'm sorry, but why should only 15% of the population have an equal say, for the majority?
Because they still deserve representation.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you pointed out, imagine if he said that, but instead of the word, people who live in rural areas, imagine if he said, I'm sorry, blacks, you only represent 15% of the population. Why should you? Yeah, he'd be called out.
Yep. But I mean, that's when you have things like, oh, well, we need to, stick at the cars and make cars more expensive and make gas more expensive so more people will take mass transit. How is someone out in the middle of Nebraska or somewhere supposed to use mass transit? In some rural area, not like, a city, but just out in the middle of nowhere, out in farm country, out in,
I mean,
Because they're thinking of their area, like how everyone that's also, I'm convinced, why so many people are like, oh, the earth is overpopulated. No, it isn't. You're just living in your crammed up little city and you're assuming it's like that everywhere. It isn't.
Yeah, I mean that's how it is in China. Contrary to popular belief, China isn't overpopulated. The reason why it's got such high population density is because everyone lives on the east side.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I mean, I'm sure you've seen those infamous photos where there's a line dividing China in half, and
Yeah.
then 94% of people live to the right of that line.
Yeah.
Just look at any night shot where it shows, artificial lighting, and look at how it's just all crammed in a few places, a few cities here and there, and then mostly along the coast.
And
look
in
at
my
how
honest,
dark everything else is.
And in my honest opinion, is it no coincidence that the population density areas in China are in the areas, that are quote unquote free market zones? I mean, they're not free markets, but it's where the communist government eases up and says, okay, you can practice capitalism as long as you obey our rules and give us a portion of your profit at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because people that live everywhere else, they are living in a pure communist society, and it's a nightmare.
Yeah, a lot of the places that really never recovered from the Great Leap Forward, and the famine and all that.
Yeah. Great Leap Forward was ironically named. It was a massive leap backward.
Yep.
Mm.
Fun fact, the Great Leap Forward, that's actually where the expression of made in China comes with negativity. It's not because, it's not because the Chinese are bad at creating things. In fact, historically speaking, they've been really great artists and craftsmen. The problem was that when Mao Zedong launched the Great Leap Forward, he had all these farmers and local blacksmiths, and he forced them to move into cities and he told them, now you guys have to make industrial machinery and all this, but none of them knew how to do that. They had been farmers and, local tradesmen all their life,
VU says the entire world population could fit in Los Angeles. Maybe if you crammed them in, but I calculated one time for an overpopulation video. If you gave every single person a quarter-acre lot, they could all live in Texas.
Yeah.
I think there was a little bit of spillover into Oklahoma, but...
Yeah, the only people who argue for overpopulation, they're either nihilists or they're political people with ambition who want to control the population for their own personal benefit.
They're just misanthropes.
Yeah.
So there is one argument against the Electoral College, which I think might have a bit of just a tiny bit of validity, and that's because it's a winner takes all. If you vote against the majority in a super strong Democratic or Republican area, like I live in Massachusetts, unless there's someone like the incumbent current governor, if you vote Republican here, you kind of may as well not show up because it's Democratic across the board. There's like no Republican.
Well, yeah, that's one legit problem with the Electoral College, but that's it. I mean, the solution isn't to scrap the Electoral College. The solution is okay, instead of it being winner take all, it's gonna be the
proportional representation.
Yeah, they're divided amongst that. Whereas, like you said, we have a winner take all, so it's like if there's like one area in Massachusetts that does vote for Republican, but everyone else votes for Democrat, the current rule is, yep, all the electoral votes go to the Democrats.
Yeah, Mr. No said, great leap forward off a cliff.
Yep.
Yeah. So some people, there are some, some sort of like tanky types who are like, who claim that China's economic development in their liberalization age would not have been possible without the confiscation and killing of the landlords that happened under Mao Zedong. Which how do you justify that?
That's actually why I read a really good, and it's a major plot hole in the Fallout universe, because I don't know if you know this, but Fallout takes place in an alternate universe where the microprocessing semiconductor was never invented, and everyone is culturally stuck in the 1950s and all that. So there was no things like the liberal reforms and all that. Now, the thing is, the nuclear war and fallout was caused between the United States and China, but a lot of people have pointed out that if China did not reform its economy like it did in the 80s, then there wouldn't be a China to threaten to the United States because it would be severely depopulated. Because
Yeah.
the majority of the population would have starved to death. You know,
Yeah, Dana-
China didn't reform because they saw the light and they realized what they did was wrong. They did it because if they didn't do it, they were going to end up like the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dana and Kevin say if the greenies are successful in their desires, the lack of fossil fuel created fertilizer will mean we can only feed 4 billion, not 8. I think it's actually 3 billion if you look at if you go like completely organic. Organic methods would only be able to feed 3 billion people in the world.
Yeah, and there's so many people that are saying, well, that's good. You know, we're overpopulated. To which I want to say, okay, are you willing to die? You know, because who are you to determine who's going to die? Who's going to make the ultimate sacrifice?
Yep.
Yeah. And that's another thing too I see about a lot of Malthusians is that, you know, a lot of them are talking about population decline and they have all these programs to control population. And notice how they're only advocating for it in the poor areas, not, you know, the rich countries. Kind of makes you wonder.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same thing with the carbon emissions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully this is going to wake people up to it. I mean, the Russo-Ukrainian war isn't great, but if one good thing comes out of it, that people realize that, yeah, the greenies lead you on a path to destruction.
Yeah. Because, I mean, if we didn't follow their advice, you know, then at the very least we could handle it. But, you know, it's like,
because
like
it's not just because people are talking about, you know, the oil because it's a big thing right now. But look at how many countries dependent on Russia for food. You know, you cut that off. Yeah. It's not good. It's not good.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, and to be fair, you know, I mean, the reason why so many people, you know, and the reason why and I've actually brought this up, you know, with Africa and all that, you know, because I've seen some people, blame, you know, the superpowers for all the suffering and all that. It's like, you know, listen, the reason why a lot of these poor African nations are depending on corrupt superpowers like Russia and the United States, you know, for basic essentials is because you convince them that, you know, that things like entrepreneurship and all that are evil and imperialistic. So so a lot of them have rules saying you can't engage in commerce because that's colonialist in nature. So they don't have people, you know, building infrastructure, being entrepreneurs. So what happens when there's a food shortage? They got to buy it. And whoa, what's this? China, Russia, or the United States has food that they're willing to give to them. And all we have to do is be their political stooge. Okay.
Yeah. It actually kind of reminds me of that one video that I recommended that you debunk, Shane, by Second Thought, called "How Capitalism Exploits the Developing World."
Yeah, it's on the list. It's just the Second Thought is one of those whose followers are just horrible people.
Oh God, yeah, I'd imagine. I mean, he used to be apparently this science channel, like kind of like, you know, those Big Think ones. But then turned into a Marxist propaganda outlet like a couple years ago.
Yeah, and I just had someone else today on a gun control video saying, "Oh, I liked it better when, you know, you went after, you know, the stupid stuff like the creationists and not getting political." It's like, I'm still going after the stupid stuff. Gun control is stupid stuff.
Yeah.
That's why
gun control is just like creationism, people. It's all the same tropes. It's all the same tactics.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I've seen like a lot of your older stuff. Your videos were always political, weren't they?
Well, I actually looked one time, and the video that I had made that wasn't just like, about my family or whatever, the very first one I did was political.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It was about gay marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might have a NATO-like coalition of, Russia, China, and, all those. Because they've worked and traded far more with Russia than they have with the West. And I still don't see how the Euromaidan coup was in any way good for Ukrainians as a whole. What are your thoughts on Liz Truss's tax cuts? I think I know the name Liz Truss, but I don't know enough about it to say. If they're genuine tax cuts, I'm for them. But
she was the short-lived prime minister.
Oh, her, yeah.
Speaking of which,
it was like everyone was saying like she's going to be the first prime minister since I think Wilson, who did not have their tenure cover a Doctor Who episode, but then like the day before they aired a Doctor Who episode, so they still had every single PM have a Doctor Who episode air during their tenure. Well, I mean, a lot of them are being bullied into joining NATO because before they're fine, dealing with both the Western countries and Russia. And
I mean, I'm just going with what people from those regions are telling me.
I mean, the Finns were overwhelmingly against NATO before the Russo-Ukrainian War.
Yeah, though, I mean, let's be real here. The fact that Putin was sending planes over probably didn't help, Because you got to admit that he is not helping his cause.
It's still a really big. It's too big a switch. That big a switch is suspicious. I'm sorry. That big a switch that quickly, no. Because most of the people who live in Ukraine are going to be completely unaffected by this. I mean, not Ukraine, Finland are going to be completely unaffected by this. But the government, after the Russia-backed president apparently mistreated the Russian minority in the country. If you're talking about, what's happened since Euromaidan, yeah, that's exactly what's happened. And if any other country did it, we call it ethnic cleansing. Beat for beat. It's exactly the same as so many others.
I mean, I'm just going to say this, because I talk to P and Pony Dev a lot, and that's not what they've been saying. And they live in that region. They're Russian speakers who live in that region, and they've said there's never been a problem. I don't know what's going on, so... Because there's disinformation coming from both sides, I mean, there's one person that put it best. The problem with covering this war is that there's really only two sides you're going to get your information from. Russia, which is mostly propaganda and lies through its teeth, and Western information, which sadly...
Which is mostly propaganda and lies through its teeth.
Is iffy, Because there is...
Then look at what people were saying before the Russo-Ukrainian War. Look at what the people in Donbass were trying to reach out to the UN to raise awareness of.
Yeah, but
and I mean, and this goes back into the Bidens and what basically happened when Trump got in, and he didn't have the best foreign policy, but he had a couple of good things about it. And one was he actually got Ukraine maneuvered so that the ceasefire basically worked for the most part, and the attacks on Russians in that region, went down to almost nothing. Biden gets into office, what happens? They go right back up. Because contrary to what everyone said, Trump was not colluding with Russia. Trump was actually the one holding Russia back. Trump just wasn't going to, kowtow to the corrupt Ukrainian regime to do it. Actually, most of Trump's bad foreign policy came from John Bolton, and when he got rid of Bolton, it improved immensely. Which I think verifies what I said from the start. Trump was going to be as good or as bad as the people advising him. And when he picks good advisors, he makes good decisions. When he picks bad advisors, he makes bad decisions. Yeah, and that's just the entire story of not just his presidency, but his life.
Sorry for leaving shortly. All this talking has made my throat sore. That's why I've been kind of quiet.
No, that's fine. Yeah. That's fine. But I mean, you can see it with his businesses too, because people are talking about like, oh, well, look at Trump's businesses that failed. Well, look at the crappy advice he got about those businesses. That's what it was.
I mean, plus I'm also trying to read about the whole situation in Ukraine and Russia. And I mean, I will say this, Shane, I just want you to know, even though I do disagree with you a lot on the Russo-Ukrainian war, I am not pro-Zelensky. I am not... Zelensky's a hero and a saint and does nothing wrong. My sympathies are just with the Ukrainian people. And the Russian people, too, because, I mean, I've had a couple of people say, oh, you're anti-Russia. It's like, no, I mean, I actually feel bad for a lot of those Russian troops, This war is clearly not going their way, and Putin's just saying, get more people, send them to the front, and like the Russian people are getting kind of sick of the war.
I gotta wonder how much truth there is to Russians losing the war, because they've been saying that for, 9 months now? How long can you lose a war before it's lost? It smelled like propaganda to begin with, and now it reeks of it.
Well, I think they're losing ground.
I mean, they're giving up ground. There's a difference. It's always been about, strategically, where do you put your troops? What's worth it to defend? What's not worth it? And you move things around. And what's been going on over and over and over again is when Putin thinks, okay, this area here, it isn't really that important. It isn't worth defending. We're going to pull our troops out and go somewhere else. And they do that. That's when the Ukrainian military rushes in and goes, we drove off the Russians,
I seriously want to get, I mean, I don't know if I could ever reach him, but I'd like to get Laser Pig on here one day. And my computer went boom. Yeah. Because, I mean, I don't agree with everything Laser Pig says, but, in a lot of the videos he does where he talks about military and all that, he's pretty knowledgeable. And, I mean, he did used to work for British intelligence, so he knows about, the politics and bureaucracy behind war. Yeah. Yeah, he said that in a video one time. He's like, listen, I used to work for British intelligence. Now, I wasn't in a 00 agent or anything. Basically, his job was to study, political maneuvers and how the general populace would react to military operations, basically. Which, if that's true, then I feel so sad for him, because it sounds like he was one of those people he was probably one of those people that was telling the British and U.S. government, no, don't do that in Iraq and Afghanistan. That's only going to make the people more pissed off. And the military is like, yeah, we don't care. We want to bomb that place anyway. Yeah, if I recall correctly, there were people that were pro-war in Iraq and Afghanistan that were face-palming because, they were saying, listen, if we're going to go to war with Iraq and Afghanistan, we need to do it like this because that'll bring a quicker end to the war, and it'll prevent potential backlash. And a lot of the generals like, nah, we just got to go in there with helicopters and tanks, and they'll have us surrendering.
Oh, Gad Gray is back. Welcome back, Gad. Over on Odyssey. Trying to keep an eye on both of them. I'm trying to keep the YouTube chat in the foreground, though, so it doesn't, stop updating like it did earlier. We only got about another 5 minutes anyway, so.
I gotta go.
I'm still getting that, Sid, in the background, that real regular thumping.
Oh. Okay, well, what exactly, does it sound like?
It just sounds like boom, 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 boom.
Right.
Regular, like you could play the piano to it, Huh?
Yeah, it might just be, I guess, my folks upstairs. I'm in the basement right now.
It's something like automatic or rhythmic or something. Dun, dun, dun. It's not like someone walking because that varies. This is just constant. Dun, 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 dun.
Well, there's there's really nothing here making noise except a ticking clock in the refrigerator.
It's a really low sound, so I don't know why you wouldn't be hearing it. Like a washer machine? No, it's been going on too long for a washer machine.
Yeah, and our washing machine's not even on. Or not the one down here, anyway.
It's definitely something mechanical. But, it's not interfering with anything. It's just kind of there. I don't think everyone else dropped out. It's just you and me. All right, well, 2 minutes left. Anything you want to get covered while we're still here? We still got a few minutes to talk. It's good to have you on.
Yeah.
This is the first one you've been on, isn't it?
Let me think. Hold on. Yep, it is. Let's see. What else?
All right, I'm gonna call it a live stream then, but it's good to have you on.
Yeah, all right, it's good to be on. Right.
Yeah, I see Neil on Patreon. I've answered a bunch of your questions on that, and you asked great questions, so it's been great to have you on a live stream. So, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
And thanks also to Chris. And what's that?
Oh, no, I wasn't saying anything.
Okay. Well, thanks also to Chris and Daniel. Thanks to Gad Gray. We had him over on Odyssey. It's cool to have an Odysseyer, I guess, or something like that. And who was that? Maxine West. Yeah. So, and then everyone who chatted over on YouTube. We have Dana and Kevin. We got Mr. No, Master of Muppets. So many others. I envy you. The guy I had to block. Yeah. So thanks everyone. I'm gonna call it a live stream then, but again, thank you for watching, and please go to donate.bogosity.tv and keep me doing what I do. Also, leave a comment, share the videos, check out all the other videos on the channel, especially on Odyssey, where I really like to get my view count up. It's kind of new, so it's to be expected. But thanks everyone. Until next time, stay strong and be free.